This is a story about basic underwater demolition SEAL training and deals with one particular night problem that happened during Hell Week. The title of the story, Checking In. It was the third night of Hell Week, and by now roughly 1/3 of those men who had started Bud's Class 28 had dropped out. For those who remained, far fewer than half would see it through to completion. But the focus this night would be on completing the operation or problem at hand. For in Bud's, you learn to deal with 1 minute, 1 hour, and one problem at a time. Thinking of completing training and taking an assignment in the teams was reserved for the last day of training, and that was months away. It was approximately 2200 hours, or 10 at night, when Class 28 formed up in front of our training barracks. We had just successfully completed a night problem at the rock jetty near the Hotel del Coronado. There was little time for us to rest as we geared up and prepared our boat for the next training exercise. This night problem would require each boat crew to paddle their inflatable boat small, roughly 10 miles, or the length of the bay from Coronado to Imperial Beach. We would then cross the strand that separates the bay from the ocean, enter the ocean, and paddle our boats back to Coronado. Once this was accomplished, the instructors would then assign the next of as many night problems as would be required to get us through to morning and the start of day training exercises. When the instructors ordered the class to start the exercise, ours was the first boat to enter the water. We then paddled our boat as hard as we could in order to get out in front of the other boat crews. We were competing against them for much cherished points that are awarded the first crew to complete each problem or exercise. For this particular night problem, the instructors had devised a way to prevent boat crews from taking shortcuts and crossing the strand, say at 2 miles, instead of the planned 10 miles. Every 2 to 3 miles, an instructor would set up a check-in station. Then, as a boat crew reached each check-in station, the boat would pause for a moment, and a member of the boat crew would shout out the number assigned to their particular boat. After the instructor acknowledged that the boat crew had properly checked in, that boat crew could then move on to the second check-in station, and so on. It was now past 2200 hours, overcast, and because there was no moon to light up the beach, it was difficult to see the first check-in station and impossible to see the instructors, who were supposed to be on the beach. In addition, the distance between the instructors on the beach and the boats in the water was roughly 300 yards. We reached the first scheduled check-in station far ahead of the other boats, but there was no response to our shouts. Apparently, the instructors had not yet arrived. 5 minutes, still no sign of the instructors. As the other boat crews closed in, Mike Paul, the coxswain and officer in charge of our boat crew, ordered us to paddle to the beach. When we reached the beach, there was no instructor, so we pulled our boat out of the water, sat down on the sand, and waited. Then it happened. The second boat arrived, and the coxswain shouted out, 7, their boat crew number. At that, Mr. Paul shouted back, boat crew number 7, okay, proceed to checkpoint number 2. Then another boat arrived, and another, and all the while, Mr. Paul continued sending them happily on their way. The instructors arrived just as Mr. Paul approved the last boat's passage. When asked why we were on the beach and not in the water, Mike simply informed the instructor that we knew we shouldn't go on to the second check-in station without clearing the first. And because it was impossible to see anything on the beach, we had come ashore. With that, the instructor gave his approval and sent us on our way. As we were walking our boat into the water, the instructor asked if any other boat crews had passed. To that, Mr. Paul responded that the other boat crews had decided not to wait, as we had, and therefore went ahead to the second check-in station. The instructor then told us to wait as he called ahead to speak to his counterpart at check-in station number 2. Mike just smiled, told us to be calm, not to worry, because everything was under control. It took another 10 minutes before we heard again from the instructor. Apparently, the other boat crews were called ashore and chastised for not reporting in at the first checkpoint. Each boat crew swore they had checked in, and it didn't take long for the instructors to figure out what had happened. Then, to my surprise, we were not punished. To that contrary, The instructors thought that what Mr. Paul had pulled off was inspirational, and the instructor, who had been dealing with us, stood about 20 feet away, having a good laugh. The instructor then ordered us to get the hell out of his sight, and we made a mad scramble for our boat and the water. As we were making our way to the second check-in station, we started to pass the other boats paddling toward us. They were on their way back to the first check-in station to check in again, but this time it would be for real. We heard some very strong and disparaging language as each boat crew passed us, but that was not important, because for this operation we were unbeatable. We successfully completed the exercise far ahead of the others, and thanks to Mr. Paul, we were awarded double points for what he had done. The other boat crews were then informed that in the future, Mr. Paul should be referred to as the master of checking in. If you enjoyed this story and would like to purchase a copy of my book, go to www.udt-seal-stories.com and I will send you a signed copy. If you prefer the Kindle version, go to amazon.com books and type in Nick Nicholson. Thank you.